For anyone that missed the class chat, I just wanted to do a very simple lecture style wrap up for you. I just really didn't get a good quality recording for some technical difficulties, and I apologize. But the exam, as you know, is open book, open notes. Any work product, any materials can be used, lectures, PowerPoint, lectures, our discussion boards, all articles, etc. Even my index that I've used of responsive references, but everything has to be cited. That is so important, and I keep stressing that. The exam is available to you tomorrow on the assignment link at 10 a.m. The exams are due no later than Friday at 10 p.m. I've got a number of questions in terms of is the exam time limited? Obviously, it's not time limited. This is not a multiple choice exam. I suspect you're going to take a considerable amount of time organizing and getting your materials in order and prepared based on the weekly discussions and the assignments from week 1 through week 6. So please take your time. We do have a spring break that is scheduled for Monday, March 2nd through March 6th. I am not going to give any assignments during that time frame. If you want to get ahead, you could jump ahead a little bit. I will make the discussion boards available, during that time frame, but I think it's a nice opportunity for everyone to just take a break. In week 1, and I'm just reviewing my overview that I provided to all of you. In week 1, we read in our textbook about the early history of mental illness and the maltreatment of people with mental illnesses. Historically, we learned how throughout history, society ebbed and flowed in terms of attitudes surrounding mental illness, but society generally remains static as to the stigma, prejudice, and discrimination surrounding mental illness. This includes false belief systems, superstitions that, historically were rampant. We know that in early history, there was torture, imprisonment, the warehousing of individuals in overcrowded asylums, which had inhumane conditions, and then, of course, in modern times, based on the failure of the deinstitutionalization policies, that we have gone back to jails and prisons being the largest de facto psychiatric hospitals, tragically, in the United States. I believe it is important to understand the past history, to appreciate how we arrived to the present, facing the critical problem that we know as the criminalization of people with mental illnesses. Please note, you will not be tested on the early civilization and history of mental illness. I do, however, recommend that you review and outline Chapter 3 of your textbook and all reading materials related to the challenges and needs of persons with disabilities. I also strongly urge you to review the report Disabled Behind Bars and the Matt Vogel article on the Cook County Jail. I also suggest going back to some of those key cutting edge law videos and understanding, what was the mission, behind the theory of therapeutic jurisprudence, what were the pioneers thinking, what was their vision, as well as the objectives and nature of the establishment problem-solving courts, back when the first problem-solving court, for example, started, the first drug court in 1989. I also think it's very important to appreciate and understand the theory of therapeutic jurisprudence. It is not about creating a therapeutic outcome in a court. It is about how do we influence process in courts, in administrative hearings, in all kinds of different settings and contexts, so that individuals feel a sense of fairness, that they feel that procedures and transactions, if you will, even in the workplace, are fair, that people have been listened to. There is a procedural justice plank, and how we do that in terms of humanizing the law in problem-solving courts is obviously a core part of this course, but TJ, we know, could be applied in so many different contexts and in so many different roles and functions. In week 2, I would suggest that you have a strong understanding of the establishment of problem-solving courts. How do they differ from traditional courts? And during the class chat, we talked about the different role and function of judges and lawyers. And in traditional courts, typically judges being really objective adjudicators, very, very process-based, rule-based. Everybody's treated uniformly. Very rarely do judges talk to defendants and vice versa. We talk through lawyers, and that adjudication, is really the main function of a judge. And problem-solving courts, we talked about, now we've got judges as cheerleaders, as recovery guides, as individuals that could express empathy, that really want to facilitate dialogues where the person is treated as an individual. That's on purpose, that's intentional, because the goal, of course, is to promote recovery, rehabilitation, and restoration. The idea that we are not holding trials, but we are bringing in collaborative providers, caregivers, case managers, social workers, clinicians into the courtroom to solve problems, complex psychosocial problems that lead people into the justice system, like substance use, co-occurring addictions, and all kinds of neurodiverse disorders. I strongly recommend you outlining the report, the Center for Court Innovation, Rethinking the Revolving Door. This is a foundational report. It is excellent. It really does an excellent job of talking about how these courts are really intending to stop the cycling of individuals out of the jail system, through emergency rooms, through homelessness, back into the jail system, not only to help people linked to services, treatment, and care that they need, but also obviously it's a huge cost savings factor and resource savings factor. I urge students to take their time and give a good look at the Fordham Urban Law Review article by the late Professor Bruce Winnick. This is a great article in terms of understanding problem-solving courts and therapeutic jurisprudence. And I really urge you to take your time with that article. If you go to the link on your module, your Word document, it'll open and you'll see a little PDF. Just click on that and the full article, of course, will pop up. We talked just about the data surrounding problem-solving courts, that it's not really on track. It's not a big deal. Just wanted to mention that the national centers, the granting centers, just really haven't been able, I don't believe, to keep up with the accelerated growth of problem-solving courts. And in that theme, if you go to your summary on page 3 through page 4, I have listed for you a diverse range of all the varietals of problem-solving courts, both in the juvenile level, the adult level, and even courts out of the dependency child welfare system, such as the safe baby courts. And we've got family dependency drug courts and family dependency behavioral courts. And so take a good look, at that list. Don't forget, those have all been hyperlinked for you in my summary that I provided. So if you want to use them, across your sequential intercept mapping model, please go to the model, and so you can, determine where it fits on the map. Is it community? Pre-booking means obviously that there has been no arrest. Post-booking means there has been an arrest. And post-adjudicatory means, of course, that the person was actually sentenced. So maybe they're on probation, maybe they're engaged in a reentry type of program. So, you can follow your sequential intercept map as you consider all these different strategies, programs, and models. In week 3, we traced the national crisis of mass incarceration in America. These readings, of course, included the early Parade magazine article by retired Senator James Webb, who was Secretary of the Navy, holds so many roles, and of course the series, amazing series that was done by the Pew Center on State, starting with 1 in 100 behind bars. There's incredible data, in these reports, but I think it's kind of all also captured in that fact sheet that I gave you that's more up to date and now current, that we are making some progress, but we have a long way to go. And this week kind of caps off with the comprehensive national study led by the National Academy of the Sciences, the National Research Center, by Jeremy Travis, former president of John Jay College of Criminal Justice. You see on your video, CityLink or City Talk, Professor Travis in a really wonderful interview. It's not a long video, but I think it's a really great video to outline what this national report was really focused on. In week 4, we moved to the breakout report of Pain in the Nation. I talked about Pain in the Nation so much. It's one of my favorite reports. It's got some subsequent issue briefs to it, but I did go ahead and summarize for you. I pulled out some data from Wellbeing Trust's Pain in the Nation a report called Pain in the Nation, the Drug, Alcohol, and Suicide Crisis and the Need for National Rebellion Strategy. I provided you data from the executive summary. It is absolutely eye-opening. I have it here for you. You don't have to hunt for certain data if you're looking for it. That is on page 3 through 7 of your overview that was emailed to you. It is also embedded in that week's discussion board that I provided to you. Also, in week 4, we talked about and introduced the amazing evidence-based leading change theory, the Kotter 8-step leading change theory. We have spent considerable time on this subject. You will see it on the midterm exam. I believe there is no effective way to change and lead community collaboration without understanding and following this leading change model. Then, of course, we covered the essential sequential intercept mapping model. This tool was developed by the Gaines Center, also known as Policy Research Associates. The sequential intercept map is used to assist communities and policymakers with where and how to effectively use existing community resources and, of course, or to develop new strategies to respond to the mental health, behavioral health shortfalls and criminalization, looking not only to respond to crisis, but also to prevent incarceration, and then also through diversionary strategies on post-booking models, through reentry and discharge back into the community. So make sure you understand where these models fit in and that you have a good working understanding of how you would map certain strategies. This could be, of course, both on the juvenile level and through the adult criminal justice system. In week 5, we focus on the landmark ACE study, really exploring adverse childhood experiences, the 10 adverse childhood experience events. And then I went ahead and really amplified that discussion by bringing in the Kaiser Family Foundation article on social determinants of health, and provided that rather, I think, comprehensive summary with regards to the relationship between social determinants of health and adverse childhood experiences, so we really have a better understanding of the complexity of ACEs. So as we watched, for example, the amazing Healing Need film, we do understand now the impact of poverty and of living in environments that are unsafe, so forth and so on, and the impact of toxic stress and the lack of education or lack of access to healthcare. So I really want you to hone in on the social determinants of health article and have a really good working understanding of that. I also want to add that there is, I've included and embedded in your overview that entire narrative. I believe that it's in your discussion as well as emailed to you. So you have access to all the hyperlinks, all the different models, even whether they're school-based, community models, etc., at your disposal. So please familiarize yourself with them, take your time. I think that you're going to do very, very well on the midterm. I also wanted to add, I neglected to talk about the CIT law enforcement diversionary teams. I apologize for that. I spent so much time on the road with Sam Cochran, the pioneer of CIT. So don't forget about your law enforcement. That would be a pre-booking diversion model, and that's also covered very extensively in your textbook. There's a whole chapter on CIT. So having said that, we closed, of course, with the amazing film of Healing Need. We talked about the impact of trauma and why it is so, so important for girls and women to have adequate trauma-informed care resources and do everything we can to prevent trauma. I gave you in the closing discussion board just a really terrific YouTube of Francine Sherman from Boston College. She is also the co-author of Gender Injustice. I provided you that resource, although I did not assign it this semester. It's a wonderful resource to have, particularly if you're working in that field in terms of strategies for girls coming through often the foster care system and then sadly getting trans-institutionalized to the juvenile justice system and onward. So great resources to take a look at. That video with Francine Sherman giving testimony to the House subcommittee only runs about 6 minutes, and I really encourage you to look at that. So again, have a wonderful spring break. Take your time and prepare. As I told the class, we are going to go into a cone of silence for the integrity purposes. There will be no more posting on discussion boards, no communication between students, with me, etc., unless there's an urgent emergency for me, but certainly not with students. We are going to be starting our midterm period tomorrow morning, as soon as the midterm becomes available to you. So the best of luck. You're all doing a wonderful job, and I know that you're going to do very, very well on the midterm. Just take your time and organize and prepare. Thank you very much.